This fall, bring the beauty of the Rabbit Room into your own community with House Moot. It's a self-hosted gathering where your living room, church, or backyard becomes a place for shared stories, songs, and sacred conversations. With recorded sessions, recipes, activities, discussion questions, and a gathering guide, we'll set the table for you. All you have to do is bring the guests. Get everything you need to host your own House Moot at rabbitroom.com/housemoot.
You know, I felt like he had given me the idea for this, that like I couldn't let go of this exciting idea for this project, no matter how terrified I felt at the unknown of tackling something this big. I just kept thinking, well, if he has given me this, I can take the next step in faith that he will provide whatever that next thing is that I need.
Welcome to the Habit Podcast, conversations with writers about writing. I'm Jonathan Rogers, your host. In her role as a poet, Rachel Donahue has a track record of gathering other poets, encouraging them in their work, and giving them space to shine. In her role as publisher and editor at Bandersnatch Books, she has done all those things by envisioning, then bringing to life, I've Got a Bad Case of Poetry, an anthology of poems for children by dozens of poets, gorgeously illustrated by Emily J. Person. In this episode, I speak with both Rachel and Emily about the origins of A Bad Case of Poetry, the joys of creating in community, and the role of delight in the making of art, especially art for children. Rachel Donahue and Emily Person, I'm so glad to have you on the Habit Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, I am super excited about your new poetry anthology that Rachel, you edited and contributed to, and that Emily illustrated, A Bad Case of Poetry. So what's this book about? Let me just change the question. Where did this book come from?
Well, the original idea for this book came from the pandemic era when we're all meeting online. I was participating in two different groups of people. There was a group of poets who were workshopping their poems every month in the Habit. And then there was a group of homeschool kids who were doing a poetry tea time together over Zoom about every week. And they were reading poems to one another and delighting in poetry. And some of it was really silly and ridiculous. And some of it was poignant and beautiful. And I just had this idea one day of I would love to introduce these two groups of people to one another. And that's when I thought, hey, wait a minute, we own a publishing company. Why don't we just publish an anthology of poetry for children and then have somebody illustrate it? And so that was kind of the seed of the idea.
Oh, I love it. So that was, you said that was pandemic era. And you spent those intervening years putting this together? Is it taking that long?
So the idea lived in my head for quite a while, probably going on a year. And then I met Emily at the Square Halo Conference in 2023. And we ended up sitting at a tiny little table at breakfast together. And we were just kind of talking about what was going on in our world and ideas for projects and things. Emily had just finished her degree, her bachelor's in illustration, and she was looking for a project. And I had been daydreaming about what this potentially could be and knew that I would need somebody to illustrate it. And so the more we talked, the more we were like, maybe we should keep talking. There seems to be some energy here. And so we started checking in once every couple months on Zoom just to have a conversation. You know, how's it looking? How are you feeling about this? And then I started taking steps toward letting my poet friends know, hey, I think we're going to do a project like this, and kind of get them excited about it, and then eventually opened the door for submissions.
Let's back up just a minute to, I do need to ask, what is this book, or what's this book about? What did this big idea end up being?
All right. So it ended up being 170 poems by 62 poets that are centered. 170 poems by 62 poets. And it's an anthology that is divided into 6 different sections. We have flora and fauna, which if it's a good collection of poetry, it's going to have some kind of nature poetry. We have unexplorable depths, which is like oceans and space and mystery. Dreams and whimsy, cautionary tales, victuals, which is food poems, and then humans. And so that just, it all just kind of fits together. And then we called it I've Got a Bad Case of Poetry, because we are poets and this is what we do. We spin things, spin words to describe the world we live in.
Yeah, 62 poets. How do you know 62 poets?
I am involved in the Habit, which is where I know a great number of them. Fully half of the poets in this book are members of the Habit. And the rest of them I know through the Rabbit Room. The Poetry Pub is kind of the community that started in the open mic at Hutchmoot. So I know a lot of poets through there. And then there are a few that I think were friends of friends who heard about the project and said, hey, can I get involved?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Most people don't know 60 poets.
No, I know more than 60 poets, because I think there were probably a few that didn't make it in. The majority, like I tried to get as many people as I could into this book because I wanted it to be a community project, and people got so excited about it.
Yeah.
So,
Emily, how many spreads did you make for this book?
Yeah, so it's 104 fully illustrated pages, so that translates to 52, spreads, plus the cover, and then we've got a smattering of other smaller illustrations, kind of at the beginning and end of the book. So it was definitely the largest project I have ever worked on. But it was such a huge opportunity. I'm so thankful I got to work on it. It was really fun, really fun.
It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful book. I know y'all are proud of it. And
I told Emily that, like, even the sketches and color studies that she would send me as like ideas to work through, even those were good enough to illustrate a book. But then when she came back with final art, I just wanted to cry every time because it was so beautiful. Like, just the detail and the texture, and it's just, I have to pinch myself sometimes at the reality of, like, I can't believe we get to do this. We get to publish a book like this.
Yeah. Can you tell me about the process by which, so y'all met at the Square Halo conference, you went back and forth, but actually when you started working, Rachel, tell me, how did this even happen? So when I opened the doors for submissions, I had over 200 poems sent my way. And I had to just start digging through and looking for what is the book in all of this. And thankfully, that is one of my gifts, is making order out of chaos. I like organizing things. And so I put all of the poems into Scrivener, and then I used folders to kind of organize the poems into the broad categories that I thought they fit in. And then in each category, I would look for kind of the first key poems that really captured my imagination. And I said, oh, this is what I want for this book. And I used those to anchor each section. And then from there, I would just look at what goes together. What can I put together on a spread that would make sense? What fits together, and what makes something cohesive. Like, I'm just almost like putting together a puzzle, like creatively. And eventually, like it was much bigger than what I had. When I originally had the idea, I was afraid I might not have enough poems to fill a book. I'm like, what if I open up the submissions and I don't have enough poems? Or what if the quality of the poems isn't good enough and then I'm struggling? No, these were high caliber poems from poets who delight in their craft and wordplay. And it was really more about, like, putting together something cohesive that would hold. So, yeah. And then once that process was done and we had made final selections, I realized I have to lay these out in spreads in a book before I ever send them to Emily, because she needs to have space to play in with her illustration. And so I went ahead and laid out the entire book with all of the poems we had selected. And once I kind of had that
finalized, then I sent it to Emily, and she took it from there and just made it amazing.
So a given spread might have poems from different poets.
Yeah, there are a few spreads that have one long poem across the spread, but most spreads have 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes some of them have 7 or 8 short poems, and on the spread, depending on the topic and what the scene is depicting. Like there's one that's about fall that I think has like 6 or 7 poems across the spread that are all about. A lot of them are very short. But then there's one that's the girl who would not let her mother comb her hair. And that's a story poem that spreads across the whole spread.
Who did that one?
That one was Sandy Hughes. And that one, she had written that one before I had the idea for the book. And so as I was thinking about the book, I was thinking, oh, I hope she lets me have that poem, because that is exactly the kind of thing. That's where the cautionary tales section of the book came from, was inspired by the existence of that poem, which she had workshopped in The Habit.
Yeah. There's a whole section of cautionary tales?
There's a whole section of cautionary tales, and they are so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, I want to hear about, or I asked you ahead of time if you'd be willing to read the title poem for the book.
Yes.
I have a bad case of poetry. Or maybe before you read it, I'd love to hear you tell kind of the story of how that poem came to be.
Yeah, so I had the idea for a poem that kind of captures how it feels to have poetry kind of working in my brain, all these words. And then I had kind of I'd taken a stab at it, and in the Habitations poetry group in The Habit, had workshopped it, and it wasn't really working. And so, but once we're in the process of making this book, I knew I needed a poem or something to anchor the collection to kind of help people understand, like, what is this? And that's where I thought, okay, I need to revisit this poem and see if I can make it work. And so somebody had given me the feedback that they thought maybe I should start with the second stanza instead of what I had previously had as the first stanza. And then somehow in that conversation, I had the idea of cutting off the last word of that stanza and taking it a different direction than where you expect it to go based on the rhyme scheme. And then putting that into a different stanza with a different meter. And then, so the first stanza has a particular meter, and then the second stanza has a completely different meter. And then the last word in that stanza also is cut in half and goes a different direction. And that one has a different meter. And so it feels very chaotic, and yet there is a solid structure to the poem. And once they helped me unlock that idea, it was like, oh, I know. Like, I can take each one of these ideas or images or metaphors of what poetry is like in my brain, and I can put each one of those images into its own stanza. And that's kind of like, it helped define what this poem needed to be. So
yeah, well, let's hear it.
Okay. I've got a bad case of poetry. Words flit like bees through my brain, seeking the nectar, a winged prospector whose presence might drive me in. Side by side they march in little rows, these synonyms parading through my mind, distracting me with their potential prose, and calling for the terms to be delights, camera, action. Words make a scene. Quick, flip the script before they get observing a platter of endless selection. Words are like tasty new treats. I'll sample them all. Do they give satisfaction? If I take 2, what is their interaction? Could I try 3 without making abstractions? How do they taste with the beats? Will I ever go back to sleep? I've got a bad case of poetry. Doc says that writing's the remedy.
I love it. Emily, how did you illustrate that one?
I mean, that was primarily the inspiration for the cover art, which then, did form sort of the key inspiration for the rest of the book, kind of set the tone, between the sort of themes and the tone, and the color palette was a big part of that for me, at least. But yeah, just like that poem obviously inspired a lot of what's in the cover, which then inspired a lot of the direction visually for the rest of the book. But I do think it's like, it does capture just the breadth, I feel like, or rather it captures like the poetry collection is very diverse. There's all kinds of different, there's really short poems, there's story poems, and some about ordinary things like taking out the trash, and some about like mythical creatures, and it's really fun. So it's just a lot of variety, which was really fun to illustrate.
Mm-hmm.
I love the variety.
Yeah. I don't always know the language for how to talk about visual art. So Emily, how do you describe the visual style that you adopted in this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a particular way to describe it myself. We were both really inspired though by just the vintage sort of children's books that are out there. There's a lot of kind of older poetry collections illustrated by like Eloise Wilkin or Jessie Wilcox Smith, or there was one in particular by Gio Fujikawa that just was like the color palette and the little characters, they were all very just kind of hit that balance of sort of retro and but something that I think a lot of people will find timeless and enjoy now too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that
retro was one of the few words I knew to describe,
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eloise Wilkin I had one of her little golden books of poetry when I was very little, and I adored those illustrations. And so there's one particular spread in the book that Emily has depicted these children who are wearing rain boots, who are bending over looking at bugs near a puddle. And it evokes exactly the same thing as Eloise Wilkin's illustrations did when I was a kid. And I adore it. I just love it so much. She has made something fresh and new, and yet it feels familiar and lovely.
That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what I've felt when I've seen these illustrations. And when I round up, every now and then I'll run into a book that I had when I was little, and I realize I remember every page of that book, a book I hadn't thought about in literally 50 years. And then I see it somewhere, and I know what's going to be. I know what the next picture is going to be. I know it's really amazing how these pictures get in a little person's head and then stay until they're a big person or an old person even. And and it feels like these are illustrations that are going to be doing that for little people who will, 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Not be
I think Emily has made something that will endure. It's incredible.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the challenges in doing this thing. We'll start with Emily, and then we'll go to Rachel.
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously like a huge, amazing opportunity. So
No, we want to hear the bad stuff.
All of this. I feel like I said like
hard-hitting journalism, Emily.
It was an amazing project, and I had fun even in the midst of the challenges. I just want to say that. But yeah, there was definitely some challenges on my end, just because smack dab in the middle of this, I there was a convergence of things. I'll try and summarize, but I was going to be losing the studio space that I was working in. I was getting married, which was amazing. But then there was, planning a wedding in a very short period of time that was stressful and challenging. And then right before I got married, the apartment that my husband and I were in the process of purchasing fell through. So we were homeless then for 3 months at the peak, smack in the middle of this project. So in the end, and for context, for people who don't know, I'm working with traditional media. So it's not just a matter of taking my iPad or sketchbook to a coffee shop. It's, these are large pieces of paper, paint, all these things. So my studio space, my physical space that I work in is very important to the work I do. And so being homeless, as you can imagine, and trying to just navigate all of that and scrambling to find housing was challenging, to say the least. So my husband lugged my studio around to 9 different locations in 4 different states.
That's
in the
love
middle
right
of
there.
This. So yes. And so that is part of, like, it delayed the project. But despite all those delays and despite all the stress, we still we made it in time for having this before Christmas, which is crazy. Just God's grace, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, just there was a lot of big life changes in the middle. So,
Yeah.
but God was good. God was very good through all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Rachel,
Yeah.
this was a monumental task you took on.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
honestly, it
you've
was,
edited books. You've never edited a collection like this, right?
I've never done anything this big. And honestly, it was equal parts exciting and terrifying because I had this fear of like, what if I overpromise and then I can't deliver?
Yeah.
Or what if I get people excited about something and then it's not as good as we hope it's going to be? Like there were a lot of moments early on, like what if I'm not up to the task? And then
Yeah.
people start flooding the poems in with the submissions, and it was incredible. Like there was just so much goodness to wade through. I think that was the moment that God kind of took away that fear and said, "No, just trust me." Like, I felt like he had given me the idea for this, that like I couldn't let go of this exciting idea for this project, no matter how terrified I felt at the unknown of tackling something this big. I just kept thinking, well, if he has given me this, I can take the next step in faith that he will provide whatever that next thing is that I need. And he did. Like the community that came around the idea, people started playing. And I had poets who said, you know what? Even if my poems don't make it into the book, I had a lot of fun doing this. Thank you for just the idea. And adults just playing with words and getting into like the joy and delight of poetry the way children do. Some of the poets whose style inspired what I wanted this collection to be were Robert Louis Stevenson, Shel Silverstein, Jack Prelutsky, A. Milne. These
Yeah.
favorite poets of childhood, and just that playfulness, that lightheartedness, the whimsy, the quirkiness sometimes. And the poets delivered. And honestly, like I just felt like, okay, I can lean into this and I can trust this. This is going to be good. We can do this. And there were a few holes to fill once I had everything laid out. There might be a gap. Like we really need one more thing on this spread, and then I'd go talk to somebody, or I'd have a poet say, "Oh, actually, you should talk to this person." And we were able to work a few people in last minute that way. But just seeing other people's delight gave me confidence that, okay, this is the right thing. We need to just keep being faithful and take the next step. The Kickstarter was a huge, scary thing. It always
Yeah.
is.
Okay. I was wanting to get to the Kickstarter. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm glad I was not doing it alone. My colleagues at Bandersnatch were key in making that happen, and are key in continuing to help it go forward. We just sent out our surveys to all our people and had some kinks we had to work out with a few people, and they're on it. And it's incredible getting to do this as a part of a team, a part of a community. And honestly, our poets were so excited. Like they got the word out and shared it with their people, and it made it possible. It was just, I feel like I was only one small part of this.
Yeah. Your Kickstarter, what was your Kickstarter goal and what were you trying to raise?
I think our original goal was 25,000. And then we had some stretch goals that if we met those stretch goals, we would get to upgrade the book with a ribbon marker and in sheets and things like that. And so, so we hit our goal and we hit one of our stretch goals. So we get to add the ribbon in this first edition. And then we're going to do some colored in sheets as well.
Yeah. So, I wonder how many ribbons Kickstarter has brought into the world.
I don't know. That's a good question.
That's often the first stretch goal.
I can tell you it was a significant upgrade to the book financially. If we were just printing it ourselves, we would not have been able, as a small press publisher, would not have been able to afford ribbons. But getting to do this in community, we get to enjoy this beautiful thing.
Do you know how many people gave to the Kickstarter?
It was, I think it was almost 400, and it might be higher now. I think we've had some late backers since then. And between that and then the books that our poets have pre-ordered, I think we're sending out, it will be over 500 books with this initial push. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible.
Do you, since you've done a Kickstarter, and I think of a Kickstarter as being something for people, who aren't publishers to do.
Right, right, right,
Tell me about Kickstarter and being a publisher. You've already said it allowed you to do things that you couldn't have done
right.
without the Kickstarter.
Yeah. We don't do it with all of our titles. We just do it with certain. So one of the things that Kickstarter allows you to do, in addition to having the money up front to make a higher quality book, it also allows you to give people rewards and swag and some of those extras that you wouldn't be able to do with the launch of a regular book. And so we had done a Kickstarter for Carrie's book, Rosefire. We had done a Kickstarter for Zao's Tales, which is an illustrated book where a fairy tale book comes to life. And so the illustrator came as part of the package with that, and he does a phenomenal job. So we had some really cool swag things and a beautiful, fancy special edition copy of the book that we were able to produce. And so we thought this project, in addition to being a large-scale project, picture books are expensive to make. And we wanted this to be a high quality, beautiful book that endures. And so, so we thought, all right, let's dive in and pray that the people show up to help us make it. And they did. And it's incredible.
Yeah. And I like the fact that there's 400 people who are invested in the success of the book, who will give it to people. And I love that. I have mixed feelings about Kickstarter. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
But I do love that aspect of letting people. Well, I mean, they're investing money, but in so doing, they're investing energy and attention and enthusiasm.
Yeah. It really gives us the confidence to be able to say, I mean, we want this beautiful thing in the world, but we need the help of other people to do it, and to be able to do it in community. Really, it's a project that's born in community from start to finish. The idea was born in community, and then the poems themselves were born in community, and the creating of art is done in community, and then the funding. Like it still astonishes me that I don't know. I feel so blessed that we get to do this.
Yeah. Okay, you brought up an issue a little while ago, Rachel, that I'd love to hear both of y'all talk about. And you had talked about the idea of the way children enjoy words, and we could have said the way children enjoy images, or the way they enjoy, art. Period. Talk to me about the difference in the way, in your sense of the way children receive work, creative work, and the way we adults have learned not to receive it in the same way.
Interesting. Do you have thoughts, Emily?
Well, my first thought, there's a quote by Madeline L'Engle. I don't know exactly what the quote is. I don't have it memorized, but it's something along the lines of like, a book that's not good enough for children isn't good enough for adults, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it very poorly, I'm sure. But just the idea that, like, I think kids appreciate, when something is done well just as much, and maybe even more so on some level than adults.
Yeah. I agree. Like I remember as a child seeing a difference in the quality of books. Like my favorite books were the ones I could tell were well done, were professionally done. And, sometimes you see things that are produced for children, and maybe it's just people who are only interested in making money. And so they're like, let's get this out quickly. And, the little dollar store books, I don't know. That you're just like, who wants this? Like as an adult, I don't see the beauty in it. And I know as a child, I would have rejected this book because I think children have this sensor of, they see truth, and they, I just remember distinctly as a child seeing things so clearly. Like I could see, hypocrisy, if that makes sense. Like I could see, I just had a sense of when things weren't right or when they were off and when they were well done. And I appreciated that. And so, I mean, maybe that's an artistic sense that some children have and some don't as much in certain areas. But I don't know. I think in general, children like get their opinions. Like we pulled my kids in to get their opinions on this process of some of the poems. And when Emily would give me different options for some of the artwork on a particular spread, we could take it this way or this way. I'd get my kids' opinions and say, if you had to pick one of these, which would you pick? And, I had my ideas, but they had their opinions too. And often their opinions lined up with mine, but I would not tell them what I thought until the end because I wanted to be sure, like, this is for them.
I think with kids also, there's an expectation of delight, right? They interact with pictures and words with the expectation that I'm doing this for fun.
Yeah.
And somehow in the intervening years, after childhood, we expect some kind of serious. I'm fully capable of delight for sure, but almost think of delight as a bonus instead of the whole point.
Yeah.
And kids, I think, know that delight is the point. And I think they're probably right about that.
Yep. And I think the adults who come back around to that are the ones who are childlike in that way, are ones who are doing good work. Like I see a correlation of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think delight is the key element in doing good work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the poem, I haven't read all the poems in the collection, but the ones I've read have just been oozing with delight or busting. I guess delight busts out more than it oozes out.
Yes.
and there's certainly a busting out of delight in the pictures. Too, Emily.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, so when it came to illustrating, the very last thing that got illustrated in the book was the title poem, because technically it had been illustrated on the cover, but we didn't want to use that same image inside the book. We had a whole spread to work with, and we had the idea of pulling small images from all of Emily's illustrations throughout the book and putting them in an arrangement, like in a design around the poem. And so it's almost like an I Spy, where when you read the title page, like it says these pictures, all of these images come from somewhere else in the book. Can you find them? And I adored things like that as a kid, like the Where's Waldo, the I Spy books. And so it was just that last little bit of delight of, my goal was to have no boring page anywhere in the book. There is something interesting or fun or delightful on every single page, front matter, back matter included. And that spread, I was just trying to rack my brain of like, what's the best way to illustrate this without having to just copy, what Emily did on the front. And then that's when we had the idea of pulling in all these images, and it made me so happy to get to do it. I think it was like 80 something tiny little pictures, and I'm having to drop out the background and isolate it. And it just, I don't know, it's just like the icing on the cake to get to do that.
I love it.
Yeah, Rachel says that was our idea, but it was her idea entirely, I'll say, which I was a huge fan of. It was like when she sent me that to preview, I was like, oh my goodness, how did we not think of this sooner?
Right. I know. It just, really the ideas come. I think I've heard you say in the past, Jonathan, about how we don't have to be stingy. There's always more where that came from. And I think that was one of those things where we've poured so much creativity into the book to that point. And even at the last moments of what do we do with these little holes that are left? The creativity still comes. There were still more ideas. And it's just chock full.
I love it. I love that principle of no boring pages. Everybody needs to have that principle. All publishers need to have that principle, especially textbook publishers.
Yes. Yes. You can talk. Okay. So originally, I saw Rabbit Room Press is really good about having some little something extra on the copyright page.
Yeah.
And so we totally copied that as a publishing company. So every single one of our copyright pages has some kind of fun little line in it, and I get to write those. And so when it came time to publish this, I thought, okay, we're writing this, but what else can we add? Like, where else can we inject a little bit of fun? And so, yeah, you need to read even the boring parts because there are fun little things tucked.
Okay. Yeah, it didn't occur to me to ask because even the copyright page has no boring?
Even the copyright page. That's right. Even the acknowledgments page.
Okay. Excellent. All right. We are recording this on early November.
Yes.
And so as of this moment and when this episode releases,
yes,
Kickstarter is still open.
Yes.
People who order on the Kickstarter can get their books by Christmas.
That is the plan. Yeah.
That's the plan.
It's going to be a quick turnaround on our end. Like as soon as the books come in, we're going to package them up, send them right back out. So if anybody wants the book in time for Christmas, order it through Kickstarter. You can still get in as a late backer. And that's our pre-order platform. Once that closes, which will probably be early December 5th, somewhere in there, we're going to close the Kickstarter. And then the book will not be available until January. So you could pre-order through our website, bandersnatchbooks.com. But anything that is ordered apart from Kickstarter will not go out until January 6th when the book officially releases.
All right. So anybody who's listening to this episode in the back catalog,
right? Yes.
After December 5th, 2025, just go to Bandersnatch.
That's right. Bandersnatchbooks.com. And it will be.
Bandersnatchbooks.com.
Yep.
And but if you're listening to this sort of real time,
it's still available. You can still get in on
Christmas. It. Yeah. Or let's just say it, several books.
Yes. I mean, yes.
Depending on how many young people you love.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right.
I hope we sell out of this first print run quickly so we can print more.
From your mouth to God's ears.
That's right.
All right, friends. Thank you all for being here. This has been a lot of fun. And
thanks
you,
Jonathan.
For the hard work you've done on this book. It's so beautiful. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
The Habit Podcast is brought to you by The Rabbit Room, where art nourishes community and community nourishes art. You can support their work, including this podcast, by becoming a member. Visit rabbitroom.com/membership. Special thanks as well to Taylor Leonard for letting us use her song Diamonds as the theme music for the Habit Podcast. You can learn more about Taylor and follow her work at taylorleonard.com. The Habit membership is a library of resources for writers by me, Jonathan Rogers. More importantly, The Habit is a hub of community where like-minded writers gather to discuss their work and give each other a little more courage. Find out more at thehabit.co.
If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, consider joining the Rabbit Room membership. Your membership helps sustain this community, funding everything from publishing and podcasts and theater productions to events and programs that support artists who create with a Christ-centered vision. We'd love to have you on board. Learn more at rabbitroom.com/member.